but very often going for a self-target on the Frostbite, if it's a key mana turn, can be such a huge difference. Like if they're leading into turn 4 and they clearly want to go for a Incanter's Flow to be able to get that online, bumping that up to 6 and forcing them onto something else is such a brutal way to slow them down a full extra turn, which is very often worth the loss in damage that you would get from having to play Frostbite not pointed at their face. But we'll see. That's a pretty tricky little combo that you can go for at some point in the game. The core game plan is much more what lambyseries has got himself here, right? Where you're trying to play a bunch of different types of spells and then get multicaster down to absolutely storm through your deck and then try and get the lethal. There's a very limited defensive capabilities for Mage against this type of burn.
You know what, Derek? Chonsu may not be on stream, but the drip lives on in both our players here. You'll love to see it.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, like, in a kind of cruel way, I'm kind of glad lambyseries is a bad win rate in Grandmasters. He's too hot to be good at Hearthstone as well. He needs to be dumb to make me feel better about myself.
All right, I'm not going to comment on that. I think no matter what I say, it's going to be taken the wrong way. So instead, onto the game. Very good opening hand for Lamby. He did double keep the caster and the Lightning Bloom. Always good to have those together because Lightning Bloom is actually one of the few nature spells that you don't want to save for a specific turn where you're trying to kill them. Like Landside's also pretty difficult to dump. And it just gets the multicaster more value soon. And of course, the Primordial Studies in there as the only arcane spell, and that's already 2 spell schools accounted for the multicaster, followed by Brilliant Macaw. So lambyseries card draw already spoken for. Whereas for Gur, he has Mozaki and a bit of card draw, but the mana cheat is still lacking.
Oh my god, this is absolutely lightning fast card draw here. Like, Bloom multicaster I think he's going for here. Absolutely, I'm on board with this. And then next turn, I don't know, you can worry about what you're going to do then. Maybe even like tempo zapper, maybe double zapper, who knows, if you really want to start turning up the heat. But then, like you said, another Macaw, another multicaster. It's just making sure once he's drawn all those cards, he can actually formulate it into enough damage to close out the game. Because Gur here, I really like that he's going for the Rune Orb and the First Flame instead. For these first few turns, denying any minion damage you can is absolutely key. Because the difference between like 25, 23 damage and 30 damage is just absolutely worlds apart for the Burn Shaman. It really does take a lot extra to get to those upper echelons of damage.
That's right. Both Mozaki Mage and Burn Shaman, they don't have clear set breakpoints. Mozaki just goes to infinity, so yeah, you never count. But the Burn Shaman, you absolutely do have to count. You have limited amounts of burn spells, especially if you're thinking about allocating a Frostbite for disruption rather than face damage. For Lamby now, this turn was, I think, gonna be a complete pass, but now that he has drawn Overdraft, probably just trade that away. I think it's too early to think about saving that for combo potential. Like, he could use it and unlock right now, which would allow him to then coin Macaw, now that I look at that. So maybe that is a pretty good line, because you have to think about hand space as well in Lamby's position, where, like, if you're saving the zappers for the combo, it's gonna be a while before hand space is going to free up.
Yeah, it goes with the Zapper first to overload that one extra mana crystal as well, which is, I think, very, very smart. Ends up on just Note Taker, though. Interesting. I really thought that was going to end on Coin Macaw, because I think the number of cards he was dumping, he could even maybe have just gone multicaster again on turn 4. And even if you burn a card, kind of who cares? You're putting so much pressure on and applying so much damage. But lambyseries does, in the end, slow it down. I guess the value of the coin is something we do need to talk about in terms of getting a one big burst turn.
True. But then you can make the counter argument that surely the value of an additional zapper is higher than the value of a coin.
Sure.
It depends on the mana break points, but Lamby here clearly valuing hand space, and he does put forward some pressure while doing that, and it follows into a minion curve. Whether or not he had top decked this Cavern, there was going to be a 3-4 hitting the board this turn. Obviously, this one is better because it's more consistent pressure. So Lamby is also somewhat making it difficult for Gur to just play a flow uncontested. expected. So it's a different way to approaching the matchup and really trying to hit that balance between minion damage and combo that we were talking about.
On balance here for Gura, I think even though it's so tempting to go with the AI to find the flow for next turn, if you kind of map it out, if you're going AI this turn and then flow next turn, you know, maybe Flurry can buy you that extra tempo you need or that extra life you need to survive. But this is such an awkwardly timed ice barrier for lambyseries. It's right at that break point where you might deal more than 8 damage with minions for the rest of the game, but honestly, you might not. If they're just able to clear this board here or freeze it indefinitely, there's honestly a reasonable chance here, even if it's probably less than 50-50 here, that you don't get in that extra damage and you're just giving them armor.
Hard to say, but I do like that Lamby attacks. I think it's actually not that easy for Gur to deal with all of this minion damage. Wow, even the coin frostbite all the way committed to the face. So this is the frost spell that Lamby needed to get the 3rd spell school for the Macaw, so I understand it, but man, does that feel expensive. But going back to my original point, because this board is all 4 health, it's actually really hard for Gur to clear all of this, right?
True.
I mean, he could go for a partial clear and then freeze, but if he does that, then he would commit to clearing the rest of the next turn, and that's still another turn where flow is not played. So I think it's right for Lamby to double down on the board game plan, especially looking at he's going to get another 3-4 from the last proc of the Cavern and has the option to play another Cavern if he wants.
And even though there are some really stupid ways you can clear off most, if not all of the board here, or at least freeze everything that isn't killed, I think for Gur, like, yeah, you can kill one and maybe freeze here at the end, but you don't want to be messing around with like Hot Streak or Mana Biscuit. Even without Incanta's Flow played, you can try and hope to get to the win condition relatively soon, especially if you can activate a Siphon Mana, which would really help smooth things over.
But for now, the hand is just so awkward for Gur. It's all the card draw he wants post Mazaki and none of the discount. No flows played yet, no Siphon Mana itself. And for Lamby, the card draw is not stopping. 3 spell schools in the multicaster battle cry. Sleet Breaker can end the turn perfectly with the mana expenditure.
Yeah, I guess that's better than Serpent Shrine, sure. I was just thinking if you start launching that phase to actually spend some of the mana. But at the moment, I think mana isn't really his concern when it comes down to burn damage. He just needs to draw more of his deck right now, which Sleep Breaker does beautifully. Trying to find the Primordial Studies, Bloom, Overdraft, Lightning Bolt, a lot of good cards stacked in the bottom of Lamby's deck.
The studies for Gur is so clutch. And if it had something cheap in it, he was looking to clear this whole thing with Fire Sale. If there were just like Lab Partner, Kobold Geomancer, even a Solarian you would take at this point, but all of these cannot be played with an immediate Fire Sale for the clear, which is a disaster of the highest order.
I mean, they can, but it really sucks. Like with both the Guild Trader and the Steward, you need to go Biscuit, Hot Streak, Fire Sale, which is awful, obviously, but with this much damage you're facing down, it's getting close to a necessity.
Yep. Oh, Hot Streak instead of... Okay, I'm blind. Yeah, use that instead of the Biscuit.
Oh, no, yeah, you don't even need the Biscuit. Yeah, sorry, I am being an idiot. A little expensive, though.
Definitely feels like it, because Gur has no mana cheat at all other than the Biscuit, and that's just, like, even conditional, right? With this hand, it's just not nearly enough to pop off. But for Lamby, the board game plan is still honestly viable. He can go Cavern, Viper, clear this board.
I think I like that. I was wondering how kind of all in you go, because you could go for the plan of like Novice Serpent Shrine to get as much damage on board as you can right now. But I like where your head is at more of just getting a little bit more consistent pressure over the next few turns and still leading up to getting a lot of burn. But lambyseries is actually holding off on the Serpent Shrines here, trying to get a huge burst turn, you would imagine, with the Zappers, Blooms, and Serpent Shrines.
Yeah, having picked up the Lightning Bloom, that certainly feels more realistic. Like, Serpent Shrine is often so difficult to fit into the combo compared to Lightning Bolt. Lamby starting off the turn with the trade of the Viper probably has more utility than just playing it as a 3-4, so I respect this line as well. Gur has still not picked up a flow, but that is second Biscuit and a triggerable Siphon Mana.
He could go trade the Fire Sale and then Siphon Biscuit.
I like it. Because the Fire Sale is never getting played on a Mazaki turn, so on average, it's much better to discount something from your deck. If you get a multicaster, you probably pivot from that line instead.
Interesting.
Okay. So instead, he commits an Ignite, which is not any lost value. It's just going back in the deck stronger. But the upshot of it is that actually having Mana Biscuit both halves in hand is more juice for Mazaki, even though you have to pay 1 additional mana. And it looks like Gur is potentially going to go in, I'm going to say in 2 turns from now. I don't quite think this can get there with 0 flows played unless he gets all of the Ignites off of the first draws. But I could be wrong.
Okay, I'm counting 17 damage here from Lamby with the overdraft off the top, because I think he can exactly play Frostbite, Serpentine after the, obviously, Novice Bloom and then Overload. So it's quite clearly, sorry, not lethal on this turn for lambyseries. But he needs to start considering, right, is this a 1-turn kill he's going for or a multiple-turn setup instead? That Novice Zapper makes it a lot likelier that he could get that 1-turn kill if he just gets that overload back at the end of this. Overdraft.
I counted 18 when the overdraft is there, but we have to recount again because it's gone. I definitely could be wrong, though.
No, you are right.
All right, so because it's not there yet for Lamby, he is holding it all back, hoping to top deck the overdraft and have some of this minion damage stick, but it is not looking particularly good for him here because Gur can put together a mini draw turn with Cram Session and with a board clear and set himself up perfectly for what has to be a Mazaki turn after this one.
The Siphon Mana gets a little bit interesting here. I mean, you could, I think, just quite happily target your own lab partner if you had to find a target to kill. It's just whether or not that's worth it, because he's actually running kind of low on cards to point face. Obviously, there's more Ignites in the deck, but they're not going to be discounted right now with both the... no Incantus Flows being played and Hot Streak already being used.
Yeah, that's true. And because of that, I would lean towards saving the Siphon Mana for face damage here. So he is just going with the board clear. This also has the upshot of entirely clearing Lamby's board, which, you know, breakpoints are very real for Lamby's side here as well. Just not enough damage. Only 15 here. Brucon can deal another 6, and I think it allows Lamby that if he top decks overdraft the next turn that he can get lethal.
Right.
He deals 6 here. Gur is at 22. I mean, Lamby is almost certainly dead the next turn. But the one thing I want to see from Lamby here is to not have any minions hit the board, so you take the heal rather than the 2/3s. Because the 2/3s just provide targets for Gur to play any remaining Brain Freezes, First Flame, that type of thing.
Interesting. I guess he's already seen one First Flame at least. Maybe both, actually, already having been used at this point. But I still do agree with Brain Freezes as well. I think the time for board control has come and gone.
Yeah. Lamby could be thinking he needs these 2/3s to hit face to have a realistic chance at lethal the next turn. But I think the odds that you're not getting Mazaki are too low to go for that game plan, that I would rather he go for disruption than try to top deck overdraft. But we'll see. Even with no flows played, this feels very lethal to me. Gur gets a Siphon Mana discount on 6 cards, Biscuit back up, Cram Session to draw literally the rest of the deck. All looking a bit too powerful.
Yeah, it does look very lethal, doesn't it? He's got 3 cards he can point face on this turn, another spell damage from the lab partner. Yeah, I think this gets there. He should easily be able to do 10 damage with the first one, and then that will close out the rest. Yeah, it's over.
It's just so clean from Gur. Literally, bottom deck double flow, and even a multicaster, which is usually a disaster for Mazaki Mage, but he just played it so cleanly. And, you know, on Lamby's side, sure, hindsight is 2020, so take what I say with a grain of salt, but I have to go back and question if like the tempo game plans with zappers was really the way to go. Like, I did like the idea of playing more 3/4s when they hit the board, but the initial zapper maybe was a little bit too much. We could have seen just overdraft that turn right into coin macaw, and you hold some spell damage back in your hand.
Yeah, that one turn where he played the first zapper was, for me, by far the most interesting turn that game, because he had like 6 different ways he could have played it. He could have got down the Diligent Note Taker with or without Arcanist. He could have played the Macaw with or without Arcanist. He could have just not played the Overdraft at all and traded it back. He could have just completely passed. So many different ways you could have gone about on that turn. And I think, I don't know, for his sake, with another Novice Zapper in hand and the combo being so far away, and you get another discount and an extra 2 damage immediately by playing the Overdraft, I can fully sympathize with where he was, because going into that crucial turn from your opponent, maybe they don't find the mana to be able to actually clear off the Novice Zapper at the same time as well, because they're too focused on playing Multicaster or the Incantus Flow, whatever else it may be. It was really just not playing the Macaw that I found kind of surprising, because he could have just got so much more fluid card draw in those immediate turns, and maybe led up to, I don't know, having the combo a little bit earlier. It's minor differences here, but in the end, just one turn too slow for Lamby.
But for Gerther, the real turning point, I think, was the Hot Streak into Fire Sale turn. Both of us just completely blanking on what Hot Streak as a card does, and the fact that he had held on to the Biscuit for all that time made sure that he had the guaranteed lethal with Mazaki at the end, despite the lack of flows. He's going to move on now to his Weapon Rogue. You know, it's kind of a similar deck in that it is only concerned with drawing cards in the early game and having very small amounts of damage, but it ramps up very, very quickly and is somehow way more frustrating for me to play against compared to Mazaki Mage.
Very true. Yeah, this deck is absolutely no fun to be on the receiving end of. But I like the build that Gur has gone for here. There's a lot of different ways that you can construct both the Weapon Rogue and the Quest Rogue, actually, at the moment, a lot of which rotates around whether or not you include the Wicked Stabs, which Gur has decided to leave out here, and the Sinister Strikes as well, instead relying on the very interesting build with Mr. Smite and Bloodsail Raiders, in addition to the Shadow Steps, which does give you a much higher damage ceiling, I think it's fair to say. Against Druid, that should be a fantastic inclusion, but it does mean you're setting up for much later game combos, like Mr. Smite plus Bloodsail Raider. Even if you preemptively play the Raider and then step it back to have it for 0 mana, like, that's turn 6 and it's all your mana used up on that turn. It can really start to chew through your mid game very quickly in terms of the mana investment you need to go for. But even having said that, against the Druid, I think it's a really nice inclusion that will only really get messed up by these best in shells that could finally have found their home here in this matchup.
True. I mean, I haven't seen this Smite build of Weapon Rogue in so long. I'm trying to think of the pros and cons of running this compared to the traditional, like, Guild Trader, Garrote, and Wicked Stab version. And the first answer that comes to mind is you want this version against decks that can get healing, right? Because with the Wicked Stab version, you generally can send them face when you have nothing better to spend your mana on, but then you're kind of sad if they heal that damage up. But with this Pirate version, because of the Shadow Step, you can actually bank your damage to come all on the same turn if you have that discounted Raider. So for Gur in particular, he also has Octobot. It might not be Garrote, but Gur and Octobot still a dynamic duo here. He can truly get to some lofty heights of damage break points, but it is still a long ways off because priority number 1 is to find the weapon.
That is true. Yeah, you're still looking for the classic Weapon Rogue hands. But for lambyseries, I gotta say, I'm kind of disappointed in that mulligan. Like, obviously, Nature Studies Overgrowth, fantastic. But the other half of the hand, Solar Eclipse and Best in Shell, like, is that ever a consideration? You've got the ramp. You just need to be able to play Solar and Best in Shell. And all of a sudden, they really struggled to get through that. They're not even running... oh, sorry, there's Scabs in the late game, which is the only chance they really have to efficiently chew through it.
That's interesting. Like, man, if you had an innervate to go alongside with that, it's perfect, right? Because you go overgrowth, oh no, sorry, you'd still need a bloom to go up to 8 mana. But yeah, I guess the timing was all just a little bit awkward for Lamby there, because you would ramp up on this turn to 6, and then the Solar Best in Shell is still a while off. You could make the argument that you keep just Best in Shell actually, and then just play that on 6, but I wonder if that's good enough. Lamby clearly has other plans in mind, maybe just getting to Kazakhstan, because that's the main win condition for the deck, and I think that's fine as well.
Yeah, it is looking at the moment to be a well, not turn 7, but 7 mana Kazakhstan, as this is currently laid out. Gur with no weapon, no damage right now. Exactly what lambyseries wants to see, because this gives him all the time in the world to just ramp up to his heart's content. Like, Moonlit Guidance, you know, it doesn't guarantee him Kazakhstan, but he has a good shot of finding it first.
Well, it's playable now, is the thing. And then you can play another shell the next turn.
True. Yeah, that's a good point.
Lamby says, too slow though, which is respectable. You can go shell next turn with, we'll probably start with Guess the Weight, see if you can hit the Kazakhstan, and if not, fall back on the 2/7s, which it's super weird because without having seen a weapon or any minions hit the board, like, what are the turtles actually doing? They're preemptively saving you health, but if Gur sees that, then maybe he can just react in such a way where, like, okay, I'm just gonna go super greedy, discount the full hand, hope to get to scabs, and then deal with the turtles that way.
That's a good point. And it is a relatively reactive build of the deck, with the Prize Plunderers slotted in there, which has just completely disappeared from the more common version of the Weapon Rogue. So maybe just, you know, you could deal 4 or 5 damage to the turtles and then finish them off with a couple weapon swings very easily. But Kazakhstan, as you said, off the top, the perfect draw here for lambyseries. That has to be getting coined or bloomed out here, right?
Insta. And the best of shell, never mind turtles. That's getting traded for a treasure.
All right, what are we looking at?
Boombots? I don't think Book of the Dead's very realistic.
Agreed. That's a lot of damage. Even through scabs, potentially, is the exciting thing.
Through Cloak, it's really good.
Right, yeah. Sorry, that's what I meant, yeah.
Locust?
Oh, yeah. Insta.
Yeah, Locust? Pick a Locust. Embers!
Okay, now we're talking.
Yeah, that is just very lethal. If he hits a combination of Boombox, Locusts, and Embers, any 2 of those, I think, by themselves will just end the game. Skirt has just 0 card draw, other than, I guess, a very expensive cutting class.
Oh, and he's already used Silverleaf. He's now used double Paralytic. Like, his Shanks are just getting actually not even that good of a draw once he finds them, because he has no poisons in hand, no way to buff up these Bloodsail Raiders. Like, I appreciate that he's playing almost a little bit more of a combo deck than he is a pure, like, face damage deck, as Weapon Rogue usually is with these Bloodsail Raiders. But that combo is just getting weaker and weaker, with only like double Deadly Poison left to actually buff up the Shank once he draws it.
Yeah, it's just not a Shank game plan anymore. It's Find Mr. Smite, right? And you would still take a Deadly to buff your Dagger and go alongside the Bloodsail Raiders. That's a Smite. Okay, so it is a respectable amount of damage, but not the very next turn is the problem, right? He can only play, I guess, 3 Raiders, including both steps, but I'm not sure if that's enough. Oh. Because there's a Feral Rage for Lamby.
He does actually have quite a lot of damage. I think it's like 26 he has next turn, right? Because he can play the Raider 3 times at 5 damage apiece.
15 plus the Smite, 21.
Plus the weapon swing at the end, so 26.
Right. Oh, wait, the weapon's at 3 damage, right?
Oh, sorry, yes. So 24.
24.
Yeah.
And that is exactly what Gur can see here if you include the hero power from Lamby. So it's up to Lamby whether he wants to... Okay, he sees the Smite now. He's very close to lethal himself with that.
His eyes there, man. That was hilarious.
I know. But because he sees that now, surely he has to armor up.
Surely.
We have to delay the locusts a bit, as sad as that sounds.
Yeah, I mean, you can just go feral as well. You have very limited chances of hitting like solar off of resizing pouch. So yeah, for the most part,
Bloom
you
the
just
Smite
hit
as
them
well.
here with Mr. Smite and gain a whole bunch of armor. Love to see it.
Uh-oh.
Don't love to see that though.
Nope. Never love to see that. But, I mean, we are in a position where Gur has accepted that he's going to overdraw a card. And that's
Right.
fine for him because he wouldn't be able to play Shadowcrafter scabs anyway, going on to 7 mana. And the problem here is that he no longer has lethal in hand. We counted up the 24. Lamby armored way out of range, so Gur essentially has to find a way to deal with that board first. And even if he does, he got to below 14 health, right? So he's just dead to Locust.
Yes. I think that would just be insta game, yeah. I'm trying to think if there were any outs off the top, like prep. Well, I guess he's overdrawing a card anyway, right? So.
Unfortunately, we didn't see the burn, but I think for Gur here, the only line is to passage into shadows because he's not dealing with this board. Cloak of Shadows.
Agreed.
And then suddenly the damage breakpoints open up a little bit more here. Sure, he can still go Octobot, then Penflinger, and then... Or Octobot, then... No, wait. Yeah, you can Octobot, then Penflinger, then you still have the mana to theoretically go Passage for 0 and then play a Cloak. So this is just optimized from Gur because he knows the only thing that matters from this passage is the Cloak. And he's very likely to hit it, right? Both of them still in the deck.
Oh,
at the end there.
oh my goodness, that was so close.
That was very, very nerve-wracking, right? Imagine if like he needed that last mana to play the second passage to find it and then would have gotten punished. But I think he took the right line here. He maximizes damage output for the next turn because now there's the potential to play a poison off the top or from Swindle, and that multiplies his damage output by so much. But that is Turtles!
Okay, so how are we structuring this turn? Is there anything better that you would rather hit for 9 or 8 mana off of pouch, or do you go shell and then pouch to hope to hit feral rage or moon touched amulet?
I think that is the safest line you can possibly take. My instinct is to say, I haven't fully counted yet, but my instinct is to say that just shell should save Lamby here. So he can take whatever breakpoint of pouch he wants and not have to play whatever card he gets from it this turn.
Right.
But after this turn, the only thing that matters is whether or not Gur can find another Cloak. And in that world, Lamby will have to once again delay. Alternatively,
the Viper though is insane. Hello, for 3 mana off the pouch.
God, that just deletes so much damage from Gur's combo. We don't get to see Gur's expression because he's off camera from the disconnect. But I can tell you he's very upset right now.
Honestly, I think that picture kind of says it all. I imagine he's probably pretty done with this game right about now. Anything that can go wrong has gone wrong. Last game, he bottom 2'd Incanter's Flow, still won. This game, bottom 2 Shank. Like, honestly, I thought that Gur was past the bad luck. Like, he'd bought himself at least... The universe owed him a good break at this point. But again, he's just getting absolutely miserable draws.
Yep. No second Cloak to bail him out and live another turn. And even then, if he found it, I don't think it would have saved him because he wouldn't have had the mana to dagger and replay poison in that world. So he is searching for any alternative win conditions. Last season, I called Gur the greatest Plan B gamer in APAC. He always finds alternative lines, even when he gets the disaster draws. It was on Weapon Rogue, I remember, versus a Warlock, where he just kind of got there playing Dagger and Wicked Stabs, but it's just not going to be enough versus Lamby because no Cloak is there, Locusts are there, too much damage remains on board, and that is going to be game 2 in the books.
Yeah, try as he might, Gura couldn't even find a way to survive on board. Like you say, game 2 going to lambyseries, the Druid getting it done against the Rogue. And it's a really weird build of this deck, right? Because it felt to me like, as bad as it was that he didn't draw Shank, obviously that is not what you want to do with the deck. It felt less bad than with the normal version. Like, he still had a very real game plan there. If Lamby hadn't found the taunts, he could have dealt, 30 damage potentially with double Raider plus double Shadow Step plus Mr. Smite. It was a huge amount of damage, even with just a 3-attack weapon. But in the end, it was... the Rustrot Viper, the taunts, everything just coming together so gorgeously for lambyseries to finish off Gur. And like you say, a great Plan B gamer. I think he gave it his absolute best shot of pulling that one out. But this weird build of Rogue, still don't know what to make of it. Although I do think, again, this build would have had a better chance here in this situation than the other one.
True. If we think about what decks in the meta run a lot of taunts, it really is only Druid, and at that specific builds of Druid. Like, not every Kazakhstan Druid runs Best in Shell. There's also Armor Game, but that's also quite strong versus any build of Weapon Rogue. And so I feel that Gur is definitely onto something here with this Pirate version of the Weapon Rogue. Just didn't serve him quite so well in this immediate matchup, but maybe a little bit later on. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say it's gonna struggle versus Burn Shaman, though, as you know, any Weapon Rogue struggles against Wild Paw Cavern, but it's not impossible if you get Cloak or Scabs at the right moment. That is not only buying you a turn, it's also unfreezing you because they cannot interact with your face for that turn.
That's true. And he does, again, as we saw, have double Prize Plunderer. He's got a Pen Flinger in there. Octobot can buy you a lot of tempo as well. I think you can keep up. It's not a deck that completely ignores board like the other more common variant of Weapon Rogue with the Sinister Strikes and the Wicked Stabs slotted in there as well. So I'd be very curious to see how Gur does approach it, because I think for the most part, even though you have that capability to play for board, you're going to be more so playing for the combo still, just tanking a lot of damage from the Shaman in the early turns, and then trying to use your Shadow Steps, your preps, for one big lethal turn later on, rather than using, Shadow Step on Prize Plunderer to clear the board earlier on. But that's a story that'll have to wait for another day, as Gur is playing the Forbidden Priest Gia, Miracle Priest without Xyrella. Can you even believe such a thing?
I mean, I believe that Lovestorm won the Masters Tour with it, and so everybody is jumping on the bandwagon. And loath as I am to admit it, it's the right build for this week of Grandmasters in APAC, at least, because there's so little aggro. Like, unless you run into Shaxi, or you ran into Unknown last week, I suppose, in the Masters Tour, you just get rewarded for trimming down your deck with a minion that is not part of your combo, is one that you're often very sad to see off of your insights, because the discount doesn't matter that much. And like, you can still maneuver Xyrella sometimes to be good enough if you're in a matchup where just playing Psyche Split on it can be decent, for example, against FelDH. But by and large, it is way, way better to make sure that you get either Nazmani or Malagos, and just make sure you can pop off as soon as possible. In the combo versus combo meta, landing Nazmani earlier is just often the difference between winning and losing.
Yes, exactly. We kind of saw, like you were laying out, the battle of the two schools of thought with this deck in the Masters Tour, where Judgment in the finals against Lovestorm, I believe, had not only the Xyrella, but also a Nether Drake, right? A Lightmore Nether Drake slotted in there as well to have even more anti-aggro capabilities. Clearly, with the way the top 16 worked out, it proved to be inefficient at that point, but who knows, maybe along the way in the Swiss portion it performed very well for Judgment, where there were quite a few players going with a full aggro strategy. Here for lambyseries, though, very interestingly, the difference he has, even with still the same distribution of minions, is an extra Horn of Rathion in there, which kind of breaks the kind of ratios that you see very often in Hearthstone. Like, when you have 3 things you want to tutor, you often have 2 things that draw them, right? And if you have 2 things you want to tutor, you often have 1 thing that draws them. If we think like Warrior with Corsair Cache, you have the 2 axes plus the Bulwark, so you have a perfect ratio that way. It's the same with, the the secrets back in the day with Mage, where you'd have like the 2 runes or whatever it was, and then the 2 Arcanists that would draw it. Either way, it's a lot of draw basically for only 3 minions in the deck, so you're very often going to end up drawing dead.
Yeah, but I guess the thinking here is that you just want to make sure you have Nazmani and Malagos at all costs, plus L, plus ratio, so I don't know. That's all that it's doing here, but I have to admit, I agree. Like, whenever I've run any more or like equal to or greater than draw spells compared to actual minions in your deck, tutor spells, I should say, at least one of them is going to draw nothing, and it's going to eat up discounts in your hand, and it's going to feel very awkward. But Lamby clearly placing all his priority on making sure he finds the Nazmani, and the cut to make room for this Horn is actually Elec Mount. So that's another card that eats discounts. So in a way, it sort of works together in that you expect to have Nazmani and Malagos in the same hand very, very often. And so you want to have less expensive spells to make sure that your discounts land on the Malagos and you can truly, truly pop off hard. But that tipping point on the balance is so hard to find.
So we're seeing both players here, interestingly, valuing Shard very highly, with Guru not trading it away on the previous turn to try and find, I don't know, the Nazmani or another palm reading perhaps, and lambyseries picking it here as well. Do you agree with that? Is it a key part of the matchup?
For sure. I think Shard is the one thing that makes this matchup very, very clowny. Indeed, when you get to the Miracle Priest mirror, you expect your opponent to do a big pop-off. Yeah, they can play an enormous board. You shard it, and depending on whether or not they have a Bless left in hand, you can still be in danger because, like, a Malagos silenced is still a 4/12, and that can still deal a bunch of damage to you. But other than that, the Nazmanis as 2/5s, they're not threatening at all without any card text. So the Shard, I think, being in both players' hand is required for phase 1 of the matchup to be checked, which is both players attempt to do their pop-off and ask each other, do you have the answer? And if it's there, okay. We move on to phase 2, which is, I hate to say it, but Draconic Studies Wars, because that's really the only win condition after your big board has been answered.
Okay, well, here we see lambyseries maybe trying to break that expected play out of the matchup, right? Because this is quite clearly not a pop-off turn,
Yes.
but it still wants an answer, right? This is a really scary minion for Gur to leave on board.
Yeah, it's a very good spot for Lamby to just play this out with the Powered Fortitude. It's threatening as a 5 attack minion, more so as a 10 health minion because of Bless. And it's also just enough money. So if this eats a silence, Lamby says, okay, that's 1 shard out of the way. He has the second Nazmani to go off with if he wants. But the thing is, there's just not that much value in this hand. No targets to heal enough with Gift that he would draw. But with the Draconic Studies, there is the potential to go for second pop-off. Say, it's very unlikely you have second shard here. Play a dragon and call it a day.
Yeah, I like that he's holding off 1 more turn because he could potentially have got it in here, right? If he goes coin, Nazmani plus Gift, get Draconics down as soon as possible, and then, I don't know, you can maybe end up affording to play like a 5 or 6 mana dragon, but it's unlikely to be quite that efficient.
Yeah, and it's really not even that much pressure, right? If it's not exactly Malagos you're playing, I feel that's a little bit too all in. And at that point, Gur won't even need second shard to deal with it. Just other spells, and he's fine. For now, Gur chillin'. It is Hoodie. Hero power in every turn.
Oh, this is such a stare down right now. Both players just waiting for the other to blink first as Kazaka-san is active. With the only minion left in the deck being Malagos, lambyseries can go for it. I mean, maybe this turn, right?
If the discounts land in such a way that he's able to play the second Gift very early, then yes. But I think it's fine to wait 1 more turn.
Oh, okay.
I think it's guaranteed if he does it next turn, but he will have to do very sad things like playing Shadow Word Devourer only on your own board, but you accept it because you get to play Kazaka-san.
I mean,
We're already in phase 2.
Right. I mean, you could just play it vanilla, like just on its own, but I think you'd rather just have a whole bunch of big minions alongside it, right? I'd gladly take that risk.
Yeah, there's no like Hysteria hard run in the deck. It would have to be discovered. So, and there's no Zyrella these days. So, yeah, Gur would have to potentially use another shard just to silence whatever buffs are there. And after all that is said and done, there's still going to be an 8/8. Deliverance, sure.
How is that
Okay.
gonna work? Not yet. We'll worry about that another time.
Okay, he gets the honorable kill on Kazakhstan, and then he somehow generates a raised dead. Then he plays his own Kazakhstan. Yeah.
I mean, he might even be able to play like Insight and Malagos first here. Like the amount of discounts he can get here is absolutely bazonkers.
True. Disciplined play to not go for the gift immediately here, because there's a world where if you start with gift there, you don't actually discount any of the 1-cost spells, and then your train ends.
Okay.
You have to be very, very careful about the order. I've made that mistake too many times, but Lamby clearly a pro at this. It looks like he's not going to guaranteed be able to play Kazakhstan this turn, but it's fine, right? Because this hand allows him to go Kazakhstan and then Malagos and have all the treasures in hand. All the spells, at least.
Oh, that's so busted.
Yeah, it's gross.
Oh, it's so sick. Okay. Well, there is currently no Shard of the Naru, unfortunately for Gura, on the other side, and no way
There's nothing.
to draw either, right?
There's no value generator. Okay, wait. He can Deliverance and get another Nasmani, but he can't even clear the 2/6. The best he can do is double Devourer to clear the 1/1 and the 1/2. But yeah, that's gonna be a 2/4 Divine Shield Nazmani left for Lamby, and the greatest APM turn of his life.
Oh, this is so sick.
It's not unrealistic that Lamby just kills Gur on the very next turn, because he's gonna go Kazakhstan, pick 5 treasures. If there are enough spells there, he can go Malagos, draw them all, discount with Shard, discount with cheap treasures. I don't know. Just crazy stuff can happen.
Yeah, I don't know. With one Nazmani, I want to say it's probably not going to be quite there, but the Shard alone, just look at how busted this is going to be here. It can destroy the Elic mount if Gur wants to go for it. Even that aside, the amount of stats you're deleting with this Shard, or 2 for that matter, is just absolutely broken.
Okay, so he can start with 1 now to get all the... Okay, looks like he's going to
Mally
draw
first.
the deck instead of Kaz.
Okay.
Sure. I mean, if there's any card draw left, he can have his cake and eat it, right? Oh my god. Yeah. Ay.
Just
No more copy effects.
rare palm.
But he doesn't really need them, right? Just like pom-pom. The order, difficult to say. He didn't hit any Psyche splits either. Okay,
Wow,
it's gonna be Kaz after. So he's just greeting it out, right? He just wanted all of the original cards in his deck into the treasures. Holy Book.
Oh, is Exercise of the Nuts here to silence a minion as you attack it? Maybe it's just book.
Yeah, he just has another shard. It's fine. Well, these are not burst damage. Did he take the Blade of Keldelar at any point? I didn't notice, but anyway, he didn't take the hilt either, so he just has a Noyahorn. Man, people pick treasures so fast. It's so hard to keep up.
I know. Yeah, and the deck tracker does not like them either.
Dude, can Gur ever draw decently in one game in his life on Grandmasters? It just feels like it doesn't happen.
I mean, it wasn't a bad draw for him this game, right? Like, I don't know. If it wasn't for the... yeah, I guess. He needed Malagos or a Draconic Studies to really make it work. Like you say, the Shard of the Naru is just too backbreaking in this matchup. These kind of plays just don't win.
He is going to try and draw with Gift. He has another shot with Gift by damaging his second Nazmani further, but man, this just does not get there. Even if the Gift gives him Malagos off the top, like he's not discounting anymore because the original card tax from the Nazmanis have been silenced, but it is Mali, so...
Like realistically, I think you just say Shard of the Naru's bottom card. That's your out here, really. And so I fully agree with him going all in on these very, very large Elict minions.
Yeah, you pray that the Naru was in the deck before it got Kazakhstan. And that is bonkers, but so is every other play.
Every play's bonkers. I don't even know what you do. Like,
Plus!
oh.
Is this lethal? Not seeing it just yet, but it can be. What minion did he take from the treasures? I don't know.
Oh, crusty.
He doesn't even need the shard here. That's how insane this is. He can just book in Krusty. Oh, sorry, he doesn't have the mana, so it is still just gonna be shard, but Gur is not having a good time, whereas Lamby is choosing between broken, and more broken for his plays.
I mean, he is actually just straight up playing duels right now. Like, this is just getting ridiculous. That gets you a silenced version this time, right? Because the original was silenced. Oh no, a copy of it, yeah, so it gets you the full version. Brilliant.
Yep. Yep, he absolutely needed that difference to be in the lead here.
Every little helps. Okay, prayer Mali? Yeah.
We're not calling that prayer, we're just calling that desperate. Yeah. Nothing can do anything here. There's simply nothing in the deck. Yes, he can silence, but there is still going to be a whole lot of stats for Lamby, if not just straight up lethal. Mali's max health right now is 12. You can bless it up to 15. Sorry, you can focus will it up to 18. And you would then be 2 off lethal as far as I can see. Probably palm reading first to see if anything better can be done.
Yeah, maybe even Thrive. Like, again, I don't know what's in his deck at this point.
True, me neither.
But he's just gone basically full removal here, right? Staff and Holy Book should be able to deal with literally anything that Gur can piece together.
I'm just trying to be kind to Gur here and end his suffering as soon as possible, looking for lethal, but it's just not there. He's still a priest in the end. He cannot kill. Okay, maybe in here? Another studies.
Another
really?
Kazakhstan, let's go. Oh.
Gift was pretty good here. It just healed up the Mali for better blessed breakpoints, but sure. Everything wins, Derek. Everything wins.
Everything wins indeed, yeah. Didn't even want to go focus will. I mean, I guess, honestly, just having a snap silence is more valuable than an extra 3 damage here, so I fully respect it.
It's not as though he has removal and removal and removal in that.
I don't know, Gia. Like you say, he's so far over here. Is there anything in the deck even? Oh, there's one more Nazmani. Okay, okay, let's go.
There's
Come on, Gur.
He has the studies, and he has 2 gifts. 2 gifts, I think. Yeah, okay, so the whole hand is playable and whatever he gets off from the studies. If he pulls this off, there's just the greatest player in Hearthstone.
There was no way. Like, even Condemn,
no
he'd
way.
need to, like, generate a Zyrella or Deathwing, maybe? Something stupid like that? I don't know.
Oh, another studies! Wait a minute. There's nothing left. Scribe into Hysteria.
Wave of Apathy buys him a turn or something? Yeah. Okay, let's keep going, let's keep going, let's keep these discounts rolling, Gur. There's maybe something here.
I mean, there is technically a way to go infinite if the Scribe gives you Draconic Studies again. But I don't even think the greatest Battlegrounds players would have the APM for that.
Oh, the Psych Split as well. This was such an impressive turn from Gur. I mean, fair play to the man. I don't think I could have pulled off anything close to this.
Absolutely. This is the most impressive loss I've ever seen. Because he has literally used the entire deck, and it's all just gonna get, well, Lamby's choice of Deathwing era staffed away.
All right, so Staff can kill
6. I mean, okay, 3 things and 3 shields.
Crusty, yeah, it gets there. The full clear, and then your opponent just concedes.
Yeah. Dude, I'm still not over the turn from Gur. That was amazing.
Nuts. Yeah.
He played 2 Alex Trazas and a Mage Scribe from nothing that turn.
It was impressive. I'll give him that. It's like the most impressive gymnastics routine ever, and then you just, break your ankle on the way down at the end. Like, it's very, very impressive, but ultimately it's worth nothing in the end. But lambyseries 2-1 up here, just his Burn Shaman that needs to get a win, which is, again, such an interesting deck, such a contentious deck right now, because on the one hand, it has such a devout core set of followers, right, who believe it to be the best, if not one of the best decks in the game at the moment. But the results, honestly, from what I've seen in the Masters Tour and from some of the players talking about it afterwards, don't really seem to be there necessarily.
Yeah, it underperformed on the Masters Tour, although I say that without really having a benchmark, because it's not as if I know the win rate on ladder of Burn Shaman. That's a whole new pronunciation. Added to Raven's list. I just know it is played very widely on ladder because it's such a fun deck. I feel that people like. There is a way to get on board, and there is a way to burn them over the top. That is just like all the spectrum of Hearthstone available. It is not necessarily fun to play against, I would say, if you are a board-based deck, because Snowfall Guardian just completely solos those matchups, and I think that is one of the main reasons why Paladin has fallen off. It makes the Quest Rogue matchup pretty difficult for the Rogue as well. And it's also a very big deal versus Priest, because that can be one way to stave off their onslaught of huge minions. However, Priest does have ways to outlast the Snowfall itself, namely by silencing it. So you also have to hit a very, very intricate balance of the board-based game plan and the burn as the Shaman.
Exactly. Yeah, it's I'm excited to see it against the Priest. Honestly, I do kind of hope that Gur takes us to a game 5 here, because I believe he's lining up the Rogue first. I do want to talk about that one good and in depth if it comes about. But here against the Rogue, things are going to get real spicy, right? Because against the traditional version of Weapon Rogue, I think it's fair to say that if they hit the weapon on curve and you don't have Viper to kill it off, you're in a pretty big underdog as the Shaman, right? You have freeze to deal with minions that don't really exist. You don't have any healing, and your burn is often just a little bit too slow, especially when you factor in the double cloak of shadows. Do you think that's going to hold true as well for this version of the deck, given that we do see the Shank in hand for Gur already?
Yeah, I think it is still very much a real game plan for Gur to go completely all in on the weapon. But the difference for Gur is that he has also a realistic game plan should he get hit with a very early cavern, which would, freeze his face perennially, because there are prize plunderers in there to deal with one of the 3/4 and unfreeze you for the next immediate turn. And there is also the combo of the Bloodsail Raider and Mr. Smite, and that can go over the top even if you yourself with the weapon cannot attack. That is early cavern available for Lamby though, and gonna go Note Taker. Oh, I thought he was gonna coin into studies, because I really like that play, right? You just copy the coin.
True, yeah.
Like, you don't really expect the Note Taker to live necessarily. And if it does live, you're not gonna copy anything but coin, because next turn is always coin Wildfall, right?
Good point. I mean, you end up with one less, you end up without a coin at the end of it, right? Because then you've used up both coins, whereas here, if it survives, you get to save a coin at the end of all of that.
No, I mean,
right?
like, he could have gone Note Taker, coin, it copies the coin, you play studies, and then you hold the copied coin in your hand. And the next turn, you can always go coin cavern.
Right, but then after you've gone coin cavern, you don't have a coin in hand, right?
Oh, after that after the cavern turn, you mean? Okay.
Yes, sorry, I wasn't explaining clearly. Whereas this way, he gets to keep one in hand, and I think that's a reasonable risk to hold out for. Like turn 3 with this deck, they want to go Shank, they want to go Shroud. They don't really want to play like a Deadly Poison or a Prize Plunderer turn. So I think it's actually a valid save here for lambyseries to try and save it for a more valuable turn. It's close though.
Very fair, very fair. The bottom line being for Lamby, if he gets punished, quote unquote, for the risk he took, he is still able to always coin cavern, which is a good spot anyway, so fair enough there. This one looks like a Zapper turn I mean, a Zapper pick to me. He actually goes for the mini mage. All right. I guess if he was not planning to spend his mana on anything else, this is just more aggressive potential. And true enough, he actually hasn't played any spell schools, so it was never going to be coin multicaster.
Yeah, it was just the arcane after he played that at that point. So I fully agree. Yeah, I think, especially now that the Brucan is in hand, I'm honestly looking at saving the coin for that, if nothing else, in the next few turns. You know, we could talk about landslide coin multicaster if there's literally nothing else playable on the next turn. But honestly, you know, I would even consider just going like multicaster for one card draw before I'd go for that, just to save the coin to be more efficiently bridging the gap in the next few turns. But here for Gur, obviously trying to find some way to get through these stags, which are just slowing down his damage so aggressively. And he kind of finds a way to spend his mana, at least, with Octobot Penflinger it, and then Deadly Poison. But I tell you what, it is not stopping these stags, and he's not going to be attacking anytime soon.
It's terrible. I mean, he was hoping for Cloak there, honestly, just to stave off the damage and also buy himself a turn to unfreeze. But it's just not happening here. And it's quickly getting to the point that Lamby, you know, if he finds a burn spell here and could get Gur down to 6 health even without killing, I think he would absolutely go for it, because he can put Gur within a range where if there's Cloak, you can still kill through Brucan.
Getting a little bit scary for Lamby even now, though, because this is, I think, the real difference between the two decks, is if Lamby was freezing Gur's face against the Sinister Strike plus Wicked Stab variant, he would be so fine here. He would be so far in the lead. It's really just the fact that with an Octobot probably proccing on this turn, and then leading up into the Mr. Smite plus Bloodsail Raider combo, he's not necessarily that safe. If Gur has a half, you know, a good hand, an above average hand here with a lot of the combo pieces in, he could be dead in just 2 turns.
It's true. I mean, it's crazy that Gur just took the risk with the Octobot not getting one-shotted here, because there are tons of spells that could actually do the job. All of the 3 damage spells with the spell damage would have just denied the discount. But I think Gur took a very clever risk here in saying, I am so far behind that I need this discount to go off. He got it, and now there is a somewhat realistic path back to victory. Still needs a lot of pieces to draw.
He can draw a lot, though. There's Mr. Smite. He's got the Swindle in hand as well, and there's
second Octo into Cloak is also playable here, but you would have to play the Swindle after the proc of the Octo, which I think you're fine with. So like, only Cutting Class played so far, right? So it could be Octobot again into Prize Plunderer, and then
Swindle. Then Octo, 0 mana Prize Plunderer plus.
Oh, you want to? Oh, the 0, right? There's a 0. Sorry, I was looking at the 1 mana, but absolutely right.
Just works. Wow, this is so smart from Gur. I love this line.
Maximum discounts. And we are looking at, these are Silver Leaf poisons, so not necessarily additional damage from the weapon, but it's all right because he can play 3 Bloodsail Raiders. And each of them will go to 6 attack.
24 damage next turn. He can't be frozen. The weapon gets to go face as well. I think that's just game.
So too, pretty curious that Gur didn't send the Octobot just face there. I'm not sure what dealing with this spell damage does from this point, but he's also just set up lethal unless Lamby can roll a taunt totem? Is that where we're at?
Oh, you're kidding me. I mean, the other out that you could look at would be Frostbite, but that doesn't actually work because this Shadow Step costs -2 right now. So if you were to Frostbite, it would go back up to 0. So the combo's still fully intact there.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's nuts.
Disgusting.
Either way, he's got to draw with the multicaster and hope, right? Because if you miss, you still have the mana to press the button and hope you get a taunt, as awful as that sounds and as flimsy as it sounds.
like brilliant McCoy into double Bloom to get Bukan down. Like you're in some insane territory like that already. He's just taking the risk that it's not going to be in hand.
And you know what? The totem wouldn't even work. There's a prize plunderer, which has the battle cry.
Yeah.
And it's also a pirate. I forgot it charges too.
Hey, true.
Oh my gosh. And there's a silver leaf now. This is way beyond lethal.
Yeah, it's infinity damage. Damn, this deck is sick. Why aren't people playing this version? Like, he was frozen for half the game. He only dealt like 4 damage, and it's still just absolutely destroying lambyseries.
I mean, Gur just has a very cool lineup, and it just kind of comes together with the fact that he is priority banning Fel DH or just any Demon Hunter with Glide. Like, I would argue that this version gets more punished by Glide than regular Weapon Rogue because you're running Octobot and discounts, right? You're going for setup turns and you get very wrecked by Glide. But if that card is not a card, you can ban it away, then sure, go for the greedier version. I think Gur has hit a very, very cool discovery, or rediscovery, I should put it, because I just haven't seen this version from anyone but him recently.
That's right. As Gur finally, you know, we've been holding out for a bit of good luck for him, and I think he finally hit it there. That was a hand much more like what you're looking for. Hit the weapon, plenty of card draw, combo nice and early, and discounted 2 on time. Thinking about ways that lambyseries could have optimized that one, I mean, honestly, I think he had his head firmly in the right place on that one. Like, there's minor differences we were quibbling about where, you know, you can go for coin or not coin, you know, the studies or not studies. None of that is making a difference in the face of all this, as I think he just had the most aggressive lines possible every turn. But in the end, not quite aggressive enough. This Weapon Rogue looks like a real key contender to Gur's success right now, a key component, sorry, of his winning game plan, as he's just 1 win away now. However, if that one was a nice, easy one for him, this one gets a lot harder. That Priest versus the Shaman. Such a difficult matchup for the Priest, given that it is entirely board-based in its focus. It's not necessarily tempo-based. You're not just playing minions and stats every single turn, but it cannot win without sticking a board and going face.
True. Just one last note on the previous match.
Please.
Sorry to backtrack, but I just want to be fair to Lamby in noting that the turn he was not able to one-shot the Octobot was actually very, very unlucky. Like, he had spell damage on the board, so no Bolt, no Serpent Shrine, no Frostbite was kind of a disaster. If that did not go off, we could have been looking at a very different game, but still good on Gur for capitalizing on it. On to the Priest versus Shaman. You did get absolutely rolled by Raven playing from the Priest side on this matchup last night, because yeah, it is very, very hard to stick a minion that can actually go face as the Priest here. I do think the Priest needs to find some alternate win conditions. They do have the capability of stalling for quite some time, thankfully, because even if they get Snowfall Guardian, they can silence right back. They can also potentially find a silence on their own minion and then bless it up after, but that often does not take the Shaman down 30-0. They need some incremental damage, which is the hardest thing to get in this matchup.
So right out of the gate for Gur, we have obviously the possibility of coin palm readings. We have the possibility of draconic studies. We have Kazakhstan available, but unfortunately with 2 minions in deck, it does seem a little bit optimistic. Do you think it's just the same game plan as always here, with you just trying to rely on drawing through your entire deck as much as possible and then getting those Nazmanis to reduce everything down?
That would have been my first instinct, but even just playing the studies there already makes it look like an alternative game plan. I'm not sure whether this is because Gur thinks the matchup cannot be played the same way it usually is in terms of waiting for Nazmani, or is it because like his particular hand is just not going to get Nazmani anytime soon, no tutor effects, that he is just going to play a minion on board? I'm interested to see how it pans out, but I definitely like holding off on palm reading because it simply didn't get too many discounts there at all. I think it gets way better if you wait a bit longer.
I want to say a bit of a weird play here from Lamby where he attacked first and then froze his own minion with the wind chill. I would much rather have seen don't attack for the turn with the sleep breaker, because then it gets to attack immediately again next turn, which would have given him a little bit more in terms of options on this turn. I would happily sacrifice the potential for 3 damage to have more clearing power on the next turn, because then, you know, it could theoretically have been Caverns on this turn or Multicaster instead of this play, which is a lot more reactive than I think he would have liked. But in the end, he does get an active wind chill, which is still pretty valuable at this point in the game.
Yeah, it's close. I mean, against old control priest, you might say, oh, my minion's never sticking. They're going to holy smite it, so I better freeze here. But actually, if in terms of single target removal, it's just not there for Miracle Priest, especially when they're not running Xyrella. There's no big AoE either. The most removal they can do is through Shadow Word Devour and I guess just discovering more things. So I do think it was also fine to hold off on the attack. The important thing is that the attack didn't put Gur in range where he took more than 3 damage and could have gotten value off of Gift.
So Multicaster, I believe, is actually fully juiced up at this point for 3 draws on this turn. But I think lambyseries quite correctly going with the higher tempo Caverns here, because he has pretty strong plays for the next few turns anyway. Like, Multicaster next turn is fine, and he has those Guardians, which are by far the most important pieces to have available.
Completely agree that the board-based game plan is pretty reliable in a world where Xyrella does not exist. Gur has picked up finally a tutor effect. It feels like the first one he's seen in both of these Miracle Priest games. Not corrupted by the palm reading because of the order, and that works, I think. But at this point, you would...
Sorry, go ahead.
At this point, I think he'd take a full cost Nazmani. There's just not much more time to wait.
No, I agree. Down to this 10 health breakpoint, like, you're so safely in the territory of burn here. Like, honestly, with what, 4 damage here with the lightning bolt, Bloom overdraft is 4 + 1, 5. Like, there's 9 more damage in hand, right? Ready to go.
Just gonna get the draws from the multicaster, Macaw copy.
Yeah, lovely.
Pretty decent, and the overload doesn't matter because he has overdraft in hand. Complete tempo play, and Gur needs to have the quickest turn of his life, because we are looking at, what, Insight into Nazmani into Fortitude for free, depending on whether he draws a spell, and then copy effect. And he has to hit the right discounts, otherwise this just doesn't work. Okay, so you can Thrive, which will corrupt the Insight and thus repay the mana you spent on the Thrive if you are just going in with Nazmani this turn.
But I guess, you know, the Thrive can be used for 2 more spells post Nazmani, which will recoup more mana.
Well, but the problem is, like you need mana this turn is the problem, I think. Like, that could have been a cheaper spell in hand from the Thrive. Say, like, Desperate Prayer would have been huge here. He needs fuel, not more things to discount. And so, the train is in all likelihood just going to stop here unless he gets the perfect Psyche split into the perfect Thrive for free. Like, nothing is supposed to hit Malagos yet here, or Elec Mount. And I think it's already become a disaster. Oof.
An unfortunate end, an anticlimactic end for Gur, but for lambyseries, what a crucial win, trying to bolster that win rate from the 40s into above the halfway point, above that 50% win rate, and he's doing it in spectacular fashion so far. Despite his Shaman going 1 and 2, almost the full 0 and 3, he was piloting it well throughout, and gets a well-deserved win there at the end. Love to see it.
Yeah, I think this very last matchup, just the clear understanding of the lack of Xyrella just allowed Lamby to pile on maximum pressure every single turn. Didn't even really need the burn at the end there, but it was nice to have that sort of contingency plan if the board did somehow get dealt with, like, say, a generated Hysteria. Clean play at the end there from Lamby. I'm honestly a bit sad to see that Gur did not get to have another big pop-off turn with Miracle Priest. Like, his most impressive turn happened in a losing game. But hats off, of course, to Lamby joining Possessi from Group B, playing tomorrow. And if Lamby has any luck, Sunday as well. Every match matters, only 3 weeks. Every single point can be the difference between making it to Worlds or just hoping to do so in the very last season of Grandmasters instead.
That's right, yeah, last call coming later on this year is the second season of Grandmasters, also only 4 weeks long. But the real difference being it's all regions in one. It will no longer be a regional broadcast, as the top 4 players